Hi guys, welcome back to the bike shop. I've got Mallory with me. One of the things that keeps coming up around the bike shop is what are the different types of cycling workouts there are. I approach that from two different points. First off, whether you're new to the cycling experience or new to the cycling world, or if you're a seasoned vet. And I think it's really important to kind of dive into the ecosystem, or rather what's out there in order to get faster, right? Sure. But before I get into that, I think it's really important that we know what Mallory does or has her background rather in cycling, health and fitness. I think it's really important that you let people know why it is that you're such an expert at what it is that you do.
Sure, yeah. As Gabe mentioned, I am the Deputy Editor of Health and Fitness. I'm a trainer, have been covering health and fitness for more than a decade for Runner's World and bicycling for the past couple years, and talk to cycling coaches all the time to get their takes on different trainings, how you can train smarter, and just how to make the most of your rides. Perfect. And your fitness.
Oh my God.
And your health.
So like this is the human library of all things fitness and cycling and running, and if you have a question regarding specific training plans or just how to be a better athlete in general and maybe person, talk to Dr. Creveling here.
Yes.
Not an official title.
Doctor even.
I'm giving you the honorary doctorate title here. Okay,
thank
so
you.
we're gonna just dive on into this right now. The different type of cycling workouts that there are out there, whether you're new or old, are gonna look a little different depending on kind of which end of the spectrum you're coming from, right?
Yeah. Yes, there are a lot of different rides that you can do that can help your training and advance your riding, and so we can go through some of them. Perfect. If you would like.
Yeah. Should we start from the end that hurts or the nicer end? I don't know which way to go.
Let's start slow and work our way to extra speedy.
Okay, perfect.
Cool.
I'm not going to get into a Hot Ones reference, but we'll get there. So the first kind of type, or rather the first kind of riding out there is recovery rides.
Yes,
Please
recovery rides.
Tell me what these look like.
Very important. So
I don't know what they look like sometimes.
Well, they look very slow.
Okay.
Slow to you. It's a relative term. So
that's a very important point, guys. Speed is relative.
Speed is relative. Recovery rides, you would want to be in zone 1 if you're using power, which is a great thing to use for training. That would mean you would need to know your functional threshold power, which is about the average power you can hold for an hour.
Okay, hang on. Sorry, there's a lot of information there already. Please slow that down if you are a beginner, because she just dropped a ton of knowledge all at once. Let your brain scoop that up, okay? Digest that.
Yes.
FTP, power. If you're new, you'll figure it out in a little bit, and we'll talk about it later on. But anywho, so that's an endurance ride almost. Zone 1.
Zone 1 recovery ride. So then endurance ride would be that zone 2. That's a pretty great spot to be training in if you're going long distance. So that's just above that recovery zone. You want to start feeling like you're working, but you can still talk,
So chit-chatting is very important.
Chit-chat is very important, and it's a good marker of the effort that you're putting in if you can hold a conversation.
I'm really sorry. Would talking shit be a part of this category of...
That's not allowed.
Okay, I'm sorry. No talking shit is allowed.
There's only positive talk on endurance rides.
You heard that, okay? You know who you are. Okay, so we've gotten through recovery rides. We have made it now into endurance riding, which is zone 2, comfortable, kind speaking.
Kind speaking only,
kind conversations only, words of encouragement.
Yes.
And then now we're kind of giddying up a little bit, right?
Yes. Tempo is taking it up to the next level.
Okay,
that would be your zone 3.
Pun intended?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Sweet, right on.
Yeah. I don't even know what I said. That's fine. So tempo rides, some coaches will tell you that this is sort of the gray zone, right?
Okay.
Like this is when say you're trying to keep up with someone who's a little faster
than you. Are you implying that something...
I might have heard you do that.
Yes, there's a deep, dark secret we'll get to in a second that I'll confess after all this.
Yes, so say you're on a group ride and you're trying to go at that endurance speed, but you're pushing a little too hard.
Right on.
Yeah, that might be what the tempo is. So a little harder to speak in full sentences.
Okay, right on. So I'm definitely guilty of starting at tempo and not relenting, unfortunately, but that's because of the two people that I look up to who are Anywho, sorry, so threshold, yes.
Threshold,
sorry, we're at tempo. I just went class tempo because I don't know what that is.
Yes, definitely has a place on your training, but sometimes it's just a little too hard and not hard enough to get to those added.
Yeah, so I guess because you alluded to it, the tempo Does that sometimes get confused for threshold?
Sometimes it gets confused for endurance more so.
Really?
Like when people think they're riding at like a casual speed, they are maybe pushing it more than they think. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So there is a bit of a gray zone. So really that tempo could be endurance or threshold sometimes depending on what's going on.
Depending on what effort you're riding.
Depending on whether who's on the group ride or not.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, you know who you are again. So we've gotten through threshold. Those are a little bit spicier, it seems like.
Yes, threshold would be a step up from that tempo, zone 4.
Okay, so we're in zone 4. We're probably starting to hurt a little bit, right?
Yes, speaking is getting harder.
Would you say that the feeling of like your legs starting to cramp happens here, or is there like a lactic threshold that you start to experience at tempo and above?
Yes, exactly. So lactate is what is part of the thing that causes that burning in your legs. So you might start to experience that with the threshold.
We finally have a name for the thing.
That burning thing, you know?
Lactate.
Lactate. It's a combo of things, but lactate is likely one of them.
Okay, right on. And then, so once you're kind of starting to hurt, but you obviously need to hurt to train in some way, that sounds bad.
Well, you know, hurt in a good way. You know?
This is positive talk again, guys. This is the podcast for the positive talk. Anywho, so you can expect to obviously have a very hard time speaking. Breathing is obviously increased.
Gets labored, sure.
It's very labored. It's dynamic at that point. How often would you suggest kind of going through some of those different training sessions or those different training categories?
Yeah, sure. So if you're taking it up into like above threshold into VO2 max and anaerobic intervals, so those would all be like your interval training. VO2 max is a good zone to hit. It can be really good for your endurance actually.
Oh wow.
But so if you are more advanced and you're ready to hit those intervals, I would say like once a week to start if you're just adding those intervals in. And then a lot of your longer rides should be in that endurance zone. So that zone 2, that just above recovery. Okay. I'm formulating a plan. And then you might want so a longer endurance ride, like on the weekends, say when you have like hours to go riding, that would be in like your zone 2. And then maybe you want a recovery ride somewhere in your week as well. But yeah, trying to get in those intervals will really advance.
So more
your
a variety and quality of riding is what is going to really ultimately help impact the performance of your riding.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then you don't always need, so a lot of these zones are based on your power. But you don't always have to ride based on your power, especially if you don't, have a power meter.
Right.
But you can also go off RPE, which is your rate of perceived exertion. So that recovery zone would be like 1 out of 10.
Gotcha.
In your perceived exertion. And then it goes up from there into each of those zones, into the efforts you take. But even if you're not using any of those, like adding in hill repeats.
Yes.
Another good thing to do.
I have a question. So let's say that you're not ready to invest into power. Would you suggest maybe a heart rate monitor as a really entry-level way of kind of keeping track of zones?
Yeah, absolutely. They're a lot more wallet-friendly than
I think so,
a
too.
power meter.
Yeah. Power meters are expensive.
Yeah. Heart rate training might be the next step if you're looking to really track your efforts.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Mallory, thank you so much for kind of breaking down all of the different type of workouts, especially if you're a newbie or you're a seasoned vet, because all of this valuable information comes from just a passion and a place of just love, obviously, for what you do. And I know I learned a lot from her, and I keep just wanting to bug her about just general things that I could be doing better. But she's a busy person. You're gonna, obviously respect her day and her time, and we'll get you. We'll have some more questions and hopefully you on for more stuff later on.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.